Hi, I'm Delia Dutton. I'm redesigning my bladesinger wizard's outfit today. Wake's old outfit was a gray short cloak with an iridescent lining, and a white button-up shirt and black pants. When I first designed it, I wanted it to look plain and responsible, but with a secret bit of flashiness that would appear when he's performing or fighting. And he's a good boy with a bit of a wild streak. It suited him. But as a character evolves, it's fun to change things up to match. He's starting to gain strength as a wizard and warrior, and I think he deserves a bit of outward flashiness. He's in a strange place, around strange people for the first time, so he wants to project confidence. He wants to be seen as someone who knows what they're doing and is doing the right thing, because deep down he's worried he isn't. He's severed all of his roots if he's wrong, because he broke through an enchantment on an evil sword that a revered historical figure had placed, and then took the sword and left town with no explanation. Even if he's right, it's still a wild thing to do. Is it worth it? Who knows? Certainly not him. But it's done, and he has to keep moving forward. On the more technical side of things, it was kind of difficult to draw his old outfit without him looking like a gray block. Because the cloak was fairly closed at the front, there weren't a lot of interesting details on his clothes besides the iridescence of the inside of the cloak, and it wasn't always possible to show that off, especially if I was just doing a bust. And more importantly, the Dungeons & Dragons game that he's in is based on the Tales of game, and I wanted his clothes to look like they'd fit with that style. So I did a bit of research with some of my Tales art books to see what I needed. There tends to be a lot of jagged edges, colored trim, and symmetrical swirly designs or markings, and round gemstones. So I'm adding a bit of all that, which should help add more visual interest. I actually learned something else doing that. I knew that there were a couple of different character designers that took the lead for different Tales games, but I didn't realize that Kosuke Fujishima, who designed the characters for most of my favorite Tales games, also did the manga Oh My Goddess. I wouldn't have connected those dots on my own, but it made total sense, especially with the fantasy clothes. It's obvious in hindsight. I did a ton of doodling on the side to figure out the outfit and the colors. I ended up straining my wrist. It's doing better now, though. Remember to take breaks and stretch, or the break will take you. But anyway, at first I didn't want it to be a huge shift from what colors he had before, but I also sort of associate the color blue with him too. I tried a bunch of different options, just sort of doodling some color blocks in my sketchbook, and I ended up deciding I like the light blue pants and the dark blue sash and cloak and gold trim. He's still wearing a cloak because I wanted it to still be him, despite the changes. This one will be less plain on the surface though, and a little shorter. I opened it up more and gave it some trim and some loopy designs on the bottom. The backside also has some markings at the bottom too. The way this cloak sits kind of reminds me of Howl's jacket from Howl's Moving Castle, which is fair. Howl is very loosely in the pile of things that inspired Wake's character. I even borrowed the name for Wake's dad. On top of the cloak, I put a sort of V-shaped leather closure fastening with a little red gem. His sword and sheath are also attached to it in the back. Now, I haven't tested it, but I think this is one of those fantasy elements that look cool, but when cosplaying a character, you find that fabric does not actually work this way. It's probably too much weight for something that looks like it's draped over the shoulders. But this is fantasy clothing, so I can ignore physics a little. Does not have to work, it just has to look cool and fit the character. Speaking of the sword, I love how the calling blade looks like an angry eyeball over the shoulder. It's actually just a cool hand guard and an extension of the hilt. I think if I were drawing it a bit more cartoony, I could treat it more like a literal eye to make it more expressive. Because it is a talking sword, much to Wake's dismay. I was looking at some Chinese fashion recently and came across a cool look that had dark blue wide-legged pants with silvery embroidery and metallic bits at the hem. They were gorgeous, and it seemed like they'd move in a very flowy way, which suits Wake. Fighting is part performance for him, and he's a bladesinger. He magically enhances the way he moves, and I feel like it would make sense to wear clothes that further enhance the way his fighting looks. Oh, and it's not visible with the cloak on, but his long sleeve shirt has little cutouts on each shoulder. Just a fun little detail for if he takes off his cloak. Like in a big battle, when it's time to stop playing around and be serious about it. Wake's magic has always been the same colorful iridescent as the inside of his cloak, although recently it's also occasionally oil slick rainbow because of his pact with the shadow spirit. Even though his outfit is changing, that can remain the same. I felt like I needed something in the background, so I put a red border around him to accentuate the little red details in his clothes. I didn't want to introduce a whole other color to the picture, but I didn't want any of the other colors to blend in. It kind of felt a little plain, so I added some gold details. But the gold posca kind of exploded. So to clean it up, I ended up with more gold than I was intending. But I think it turned out pretty cool. It's definitely different from the color stripe or circle that I sometimes use for lazy backgrounds. I love how my boy turned out. Designing characters is one of my favorite things, whether it's for a story or for a role-playing game. And as the character grows, it's always fun to redesign them so that their appearance reflects that growth. Thanks for watching! Like and subscribe to continue on this art journey with me. Bye!